What's going on?
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gonna feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding. From the words I spit, so sharp, so freezing. So cold, behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate, don't believe in ceilings. I just need a taste and my mind starts feeling. I don't pace myself, I grind on kneeling. Got lust for change, I just love the feeling. I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. And I ain't gonna give up. Got too little time, I'ma live up. Head down, push forward through the tough times. Cause anything worth doing is a tough climb. Cause I'ma live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I live life for the fight, yeah, I'm here to get it. I got drive, got sight, always have a vision. I go by at night, I be in my feelings. I'ma be fine, need time, and I'll soon be winning. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gonna feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gonna feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon.
Back in the green room, the producer's bobbing his head. Our guest tonight's bobbing her head. So I guess it's meeting the seal of approval. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dead Air Live, the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel on our Sunday night live show for the next 2 hours. Fantastic topics in the category of the paranormal and amazing guests, including Carrie Hopper, going to be joining us this evening. And my name is George Lopez. With me, as always, Mr. Ken DaCosta. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing very well. What a great day. What a great day. I've been looking forward to tonight, and I'm ready to get into some things tonight, as well as a germ of an idea I had once we run down our outlets here.
Ooh, well, we are simulcast with KGRADB.com, KGRA on Facebook. You can catch us on Twitter at Global Radio Live. Also, YouTube at Dead Air Nation, which is what you're watching right now. On Facebook, Dead Air Full Spectrum. Twitter is Dead_Spectrum. That's ours. And, of course, Patreon. For those of you who are still looking to join us, we just added a few more reactions. We're going to be continuing. I think I just finished the last episode, sent it to you, Ken, of Skeletons in George's Closet. So, you know, there's always more and more content on there. Right now, if you guys join, it's only a $3 membership. And I can tell you right now, you're probably getting more on our channel than most streaming services that are available out there right now.
So I'm told.
So make sure you guys check it out. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, the thumbs up for our content. I always want to see that in the upper corner of our screen. There's a little thumbs up thing that indicates to us who's actually clicking the thumb up for the show and who's not, by name. So we know which one of you don't, and we'll send you ugly letters. Hey, we got a thumbs up already up there. I can see that. Thank you very much. And don't forget also to click on the reminder bell for upcoming content. Ken's got the reminder bell right there. Actually, every time you guys click on the reminder bell, it goes off in Ken's head. So it's important that you guys do that just to drive him nuts. But
I'm working on that too, by the way.
So you guys are finally up in the northeast New England area, getting to the same weather we're getting down here, which is absolutely beautiful, correct?
It was absolutely beautiful, and doing a lot of yard work here to the point that I've injured myself. Oh, so, no. I mean, if you don't get hurt, you're not doing it right.
Tell me if this was an injury, including the chainsaw.
Working on it. Working on it. Chainsaw went well.
Okay.
The old chainsaw thing. I'm telling Erin before that I feel like I'm juggling them right now, but you know.
Okay. Well, if anything, as we always say in the paranormal, thoughts and prayers, Ken. Thoughts and
Thank
prayers
you.
for your gardening injuries. Hopefully
I
you'll be okay.
feel the love. I do.
So what's going on with us? Apparently, we've got some ideas, germ of ideas coming up for the shows forthcoming. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, real quickly, we don't have to. Oh, too late. I got the close up.
I'm back.
I've been doing a dive into this UFO UAP situation, and there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that is coming out from different sources, and the government gets most of the blame for that. But they're not alone, and the sources of a lot of the misinformation that is being fed to people comes from a source you wouldn't expect. You probably think of them more as allies, but they're not. So I would love to get the right person on here to join us to talk about this stuff. But it's really interesting the things that I've learned over the last month about where a lot of this disinformation and bad information is coming from. Hint, it's the media. So I can't
Really?
wait to get into it because I think it's probably going to blow some minds and aggravate some people. But, that's what we're here to do, start a dialogue, right?
We're
Right?
talking mainstream media?
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
I would have blamed it on Bill Forte, but that's okay.
No, Bill will, there's enough of this blame pie to go around. When all else fails at the end of the day, we'll just blame it on Bill anyway.
Doesn't everything fall on Bill? Doesn't anything? But yeah, I mean, I'd love to find out what it is that you've been researching and what is
Mm,
on out there. But the question still stands: who do we get to be a guest for this particular topic? So I'm sure there's
mm.
a couple that are just milling around in your mind right now that you might want to look at.
Well, I don't want somebody who is going to come in as part of that sort of complex that's being run here. I'd like to get somebody objective to listen to this stuff because, and then they can respond. So we'll see what happens. A lot of people are, Melissa's saying, you got Rupert Guy. You got to get Rupert Guy on here. It's like, well, I rule nothing out. And of course, Joseph wants, Joseph, I'm going to make a pledge to you. A new Extremely Strange came out today on the real Blair Witch, the basis for the whole movie. Who was the Blair Witch? Okay. I think that it's time to give you something about Mothman. I think it's
No,
been 2 years in the making,
no,
and Joseph has asked for Mothman, so we may go down that dark road.
no. We're not doing that for Joe. All right, we'll do this for Joe this one time. This Mothman. Geez, Joe, how many times do you have to say yes? And it's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a good possibility Joseph Freza is actually Mothman. We don't know for sure. We've only met him a couple of times, but there is a possibility.
I have
Self
never seen
promotion.
I've never seen them in the room at the same time.
That's it. It's like Superman. So, yeah, we'll work on that. And we've got some wonderful guests joining us next week. Anyway, correct?
Correct. Next week, just
Welcome.
as a heads up, it's been a while. Two of our favorite people, Kendall and Vera Welton, both
Yes.
documentary filmmakers. You might remember them from the Sleepless Unrest movie with Rochelle Stratton and Brian Murray that was filmed at the Conjuring House, and they have a new project they just released. We're going to be talking about that next week, but we love Kendall and Vera. They're great. So been looking forward to that, having them back for a while.
Yes. But,
So,
as always, guys, you're welcome to come and check out and join us every Sunday night here. And once again, you're welcome to become a member of our Patreon account, where tomorrow night we have another town hall upcoming. And those are a lot of fun. Ken and I enjoy the heck out of it every Monday night, 8 p.m. We get on screen just like we do on Sundays, except all of you join us on screen to a maximum of 10 screens. But regardless of that, we get in there and talk topic of the paranormal, outside of the paranormal, about family. It's just one of those instances where, we could just kind of let loose, everybody together. First
Right.
couple times, Ken, I would say my feeling on the first couple was there was a kind of an awkwardness now where people,
Sure.
they're not used to being on screen. Last week, it was just like a telephone call between a bunch of friends.
Well, it's just like going to a party. You're standoffish, then you have a couple of drinks, and all of a sudden, everybody lets loose. But it was good to hear some of our patrons' own stories where they're sharing those with other people, and we get to kind of talk to them about it, talk them through it, give our opinions on it. So it's a lot of fun. We've covered everything from recipes of dead people to ghost stories. So, hey, listen, if you haven't already, give us a shot. Give us a shot. You can cancel anytime. Come in, listen to what we're doing, watch what we're doing. There's a lot of funny stuff on there. There's a lot of really interesting evidence clips and things like that. So
Educational.
educational. We have a little paranormal academy where we talk about different facets of investigation, and of course our reaction videos where George and I sit down and tear apart or actually
Compliment.
confirm
Yeah.
some videos out there that we think may have some credibility. So we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. I didn't know we could drink at the town hall. I missed that
Sure.
memo.
Sure. I mean, I don't really drink. I have my coffee with me, but hey, you do you. I suspect that Jeff Hilton's got. I think Michelle just brings him that glass. There's got to be some moonshine in that thing. Come on, the guys in West Virginia, there's got to be some moonshine. It's the national drink, or the state drink, I should say.
Yeah.
I think
It's not the Wi-Fi, Jeff. It's the alcohol content. That's what.
I think I said enough. Okay.
All right. Well, moving on from there, Ken, we want to get into tonight's topic because it's something that is a bit of an enigma for both of us. We are constantly, as we, go through this field, encompassing so many different variations of how to investigate. But this is one area that neither you or I really have a hold on, but we've met many in the field with skills, capabilities, talents, and we just kind of want to get into the idea of what it takes to be this type of person in the field. So if you would like to take the reins, sir.
Yeah, I think first we'd like to bring on a member of our family who is a very good friend of our guest tonight, and you all know her, you all love her.
Now, did you see before the show started, and Ken and I, we were all talking about it, and she's going, yeah, we'll bring her on. And she'll come on. And I'm like, who? And that's where we never got a direct answer. And they're both laughing in the green room right now because they know exactly what I was talking about. Go ahead, Ken, and let's bring on.
Remember what I said about you saying, hey, what about me, guys? Remember what I said?
I was lost.
Before the show?
Yeah.
She also does a video on our Patreon where she talks about energy, meditation, things like that. Always very well received. So you know her and love her, and she's more popular than we are. So despite our better judgment, let's bring her on tonight. Let's bring on Erin Bush.
You doing it or I'm doing it? Which one?
Nobody really wants me here. It's fine. I'll go back to bed.
We got to coordinate. There we go.
Yeah. All of a sudden, I get my Gloria Swanson close-up here out of nowhere, and I'm just kind of like, there's something in my teeth.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of those nights, but that's awesome.
That's fair.
So you're home for actual night,
Thank you for the compliment. Oh, you're talking about Erin. Oh, I'm sorry. Get that out.
You never know. You never know.
Called me gorgeous, so I have that effect on the chat room. EB, what's happening? How's your week going?
It's going. I'm glad it's the weekend. It's beautiful in Florida, as most people are aware. It was like, I don't know, 78 today and perfectly sunny. So yeah, I've been a bit of a slug though, so that's good. It's been a busy week, and I've been looking forward to having Carrie out here for a while because she's one of my most favorite people on the planet, and I've learned a lot from her with how she investigates and her abilities and just life in general. So I'm very lucky to have her as a very close friend. So I'm excited to have her on with you guys tonight.
Okay. Well, without further ado, we're going to bring on our guest tonight. Now, believer, Carrie Hopper is the co-host along with skeptic Laura Ockerman of the popular comedy paranormal podcast History of a Haunting, which has been on for the last 4.5 years. Carrie began training as an investigator in 2019, getting her feet wet at the Phelps Dodge Hospital in Ajo, Arizona. Shout out to Tony Rathman and his crew, Phelps Dodge Hospital. 5 years since then, she has investigated locations such as Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, one of George's favorites, Yuma Territorial Prison. I want to talk about that. St. Albans. Don't you go to any normal places, Carrie? No. Okay, she's also investigated and consulted on numerous private residence cases. There you go. And now trains new investigators herself. Carrie is an evidential medium, and I want to get into this because this is interesting. I don't know if I've run across too many people like this, but she focuses on psychometry, remote viewing, and claircognizance, and uses her abilities solely during her paranormal investigation. So without further ado, George, you can punch the ticket here. Let's bring in Carrie Hopper to the show.
Hey,
Carrie, how you doing?
Hi, guys.
I promised we were going to get to you. It's just been, it's one of those beginnings here. So I hope we keep up the energy.
No, it's fine. I've been watching the chat. It's such a huge ego boost. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, yeah. And it says, like, funny story. Carrie, check out her skincare. Yeah, like, yeah. We're going to talk about it. We also got a little bit of a surprise tonight, too, with that. So, Melissa, Carrie. Hi, Carrie.
Yeah. Zach, Jonathan, Chris, hi, Tom, everybody.
They love the guests.
Listen, I'm telling you, I'm going to come on every week. This is great.
Right?
Damn.
So, in no particular order, the thing that interested me, Carrie, is when I read the term evidential medium, which is not something I honestly have heard before. But you're not the typical medium who, gives people readings and has an 800 number and all the rest of that. You save your abilities for paranormal investigations pretty much exclusively.
Yes.
So how, I guess, the basic question is, how did you arrive at that you were just going to do this and not what everybody else is doing?
Well, truthfully, I've always had abilities. I didn't ever really know, that's what they were as far as, the psychometry, things like that. Like when I was a teenager, I'd wake up and I'd have like a bad feeling, like something was going to happen that day. Something bad was going to happen. And then later that night, I'd lock my keys in my running car. So I don't know if that's just putting like that out into the universe and it coming true, but things like that. As I got older though, my abilities started to grow and develop. And it's only been in the last couple of years that they've really exploded and grown exponentially. So as I was trying to get a handle on it and figure out how they worked for me, it was really alarming. It was really jarring to touch an object and get a flash of, my mom has this old antique doorknob that she's had forever. I don't even know if she remembers where she got it. And I picked it up in her craft room one day and I got a flash of a woman in a velvet green dress opening the door that this doorknob used to be on. I have no idea what the heck that is. I had no idea. So it's just a lot of really trying to figure out how my abilities worked for me, especially because I would get new ones like every few weeks, every couple of months. And it can be really pretty upsetting when you have, that's how I was upset about it, simply because I felt very violated, because I had thoughts and I had memories and I had images in my mind that were not my own. So it took a long time for me to try to figure out how to handle all of that. And so I realized that I don't want to be, giving people readings. I don't really know how to do that. I have taken a couple of classes from Cindy Keza. She's also an evidential medium. So I thought that's a good place to start. And those classes were very, very helpful. But I prefer to use them in my paranormal investigating, simply because I feel like it helps me connect with the spirits that are there. Chris Allgood, who, he was one of the ones that really helped me develop my abilities and teach me how to properly ground myself and connect with a location before an investigation. And then that way just really be in tune with the spirits that are calling that place home. So I do that every single time I go to a new place. There are places that terrify the hell out of me, the things that I've felt, the things that I've seen, the things that memories, especially when you have psychometry, you're touching doors, you're touching this, and you have flashes of the trauma or the pain or the death that's happened there. Sometimes though, you do touch things and you get that feeling of joy that was there. So that's kind of how I just was like, I want to reserve this for just paranormal investigations. As we all know, there are a number of folks that can do what I do, that can do it in a different way, that can do it in different places. It works differently for everybody. And that was another thing that Chris Allgood taught me, because I would get really frustrated that I couldn't do what he could do. Chris is very powerful, and I would be very frustrated that, well, why can't I do what he can do? Well, because it works differently for everyone. And so, as we all know, there are people that they're just not going to believe us, that are going to want us to try and improve. We can do what we can do. I'm not interested in that. I don't feel the need to prove myself to people. So paranormal investigation is my passion. I was trained by the Entity Voices paranormal team, Tony, Cherie, Chris, and Audra, at Phelps Dodge Hospital. And trying to find more answers, that's what I'm passionate about. And that's why I want to use these abilities to try to connect with the spirits, not necessarily pass messages on to them for somebody else. That's not something that interests me. And they know that. So they don't necessarily just come in, and unless it's my family or my friend's family, sometimes I'll have my best friend's grandmother come in and she'll be like, I need you to tell Jennifer this. And, that kind of thing. But otherwise, no, it's really just close friends and family that
as soon as I saw Phelps Dodge Hospital, I knew immediately, because we got everybody from EVPI, and shout out to Chris and Lords and everybody who's in there tonight. Thanks for joining us. Let me ask you this. So I get a hold of you and I say, Carrie, I want you to come with us on an investigation. So it sounds like to me that you deal in more than here's a name, here's a date, things that, you can confirm or look up or have that information before you even go into the location. But it sounds to me like you're doing something I really love from legitimate people with abilities, emotional content. Okay, here's the guy or here's the woman.
Right.
That's the focus of this, but I want to know what they're thinking, how they lived. I need to know something about them, character-wise, emotionally, and I understand those things are harder to confirm.
Right.
Fine, so be it. But that sounds like where you go with this.
It is, yes. And there are certainly things that I can So I thought for a long time, what do I want to call myself? Am I a psychic medium? Am I this? Am I that? But what it came down to was an evidential medium, which, like, my friend Zach loves to collect old military memorabilia, and he came across this sword that he bought from some historical, relics place, and he's like, Zach loves to test me, especially in the beginning when I didn't quite know what I could do or how it worked. He'd be like, "Here, Carrie, I just bought this. Touch it, a picture of it, and see what you." Because a picture works too. Touch a picture and see what you get. I'm like, all right. So I did, and I saw a guy stabbing in a battle, stabbing people over and over with it, and wiping the blood off under his coat, under the arm of his coat. And I said, it's graphic and bloody, and I could smell like the copper of the blood. There was so much blood and like the gunpowder and in the battle. And I said, I'm getting the name Edward or Edwards or Edwardian. I said, I don't know. And he was like, okay. And he's like, I don't know what that means. So then the next day he had called the place he got the sword from. And he asked, do you know where this sword was found? And they were like, oh yeah, it was found. It was dug up at the site of Fort Edward in New York. And
Of course it was, right?
yeah, and I was like, what? And so he tells me that, and I was kind of freaking out about that. But that's kind of like that evidential side of it. Like I don't know what it means. It doesn't mean anything to me. Maybe it means something to you, but the things that I have been able to get from spirit can be backed up with historical records so far.
Yeah, in other words, I'll just give you information, you figure it out.
You figure it out. Yeah, I don't have any idea what the heck you're talking about or what this is. Or it would happen to be a sword from 1776 from the American Revolution. Yeah, it was super, super old. And I'll never forget that. That was wild. But yeah, so that's what I like to do. There are places like St. Albans that terrify me. Absolutely terrify me.
Well, here's the thing I was going to ask, and you can keep going on that, but I read like Yuma Territorial Prison, which I think our friends Marie and Jay Yates spend a lot of time there. The 3 places in your bio that's been chosen, because I know you don't disclose private residences, but I'm looking at those 3 places, and for someone who maybe is into psychometry or maybe empathic in some way, those are 3 pretty profound places to put yourself out there on, because there's everything from atrocities to inhuman treatment, and that's got to be kind of rough.
It is, yeah. I'm actually from Arizona. My family and I live in North Carolina, and we moved back here 3 years ago. But that's so. With Yuma Territorial Prison, I happened to go visit a friend in San Diego, and I stopped there on my way to San Diego. And I didn't have the psychometry ability then yet, but definitely the empathic part of it. I've always been an empathic person. Just, you walk into a room and you can tell when people are just give you the creeps. But that place was so thick and heavy, especially the dark cell. Because you can go in there and it is exactly the way the prisoners were kept in there, locked into this little cell in this hole dug into the mountainside with a hole at the top for a little bit of light, where guards would drop down scorpions and snakes. And to be able to stand in that same spot was just utterly terrifying. And you felt watched. And I was the only one in there at the time. But I had captured an EVP. I was like, does anyone want to say hello to me? And there is this weak voice, this male voice that said, hello. It was just real quiet, real just sort of defeated. It was wild. It was wild. Trans Allegheny is one that I absolutely love. I have this weird fascination with asylums. And Trans Allegheny, the first time I went with Chris and Audra, and we did a public overnight investigation. We had the best time. It was I love the history of places like this too. So to be able to walk down these same halls and just kind of experience what it looked like and for the employees, for the staff, for the patients, for the people that thought they would only be there for a little while and stayed the rest of their lives. That is such a wondrous thing for me. So we've got another investigation coming up, Sweet Springs Sanitarium. I see that you had Cindy on the show before. That's another place that terrifies me going in. I've never been there. Of course, I've seen it on the shows, but Aaron will tell you that my best friend is watching, and my mother is also watching tonight. They will all tell you that I will go head first into these places. I will not.
Yep.
I will not go with any.
Actually, bring Aaron in and let you guys like pretend you're on a phone call with each other here. I want to like go into one other thing on that, because you talk about loving the history, and going to the sanitarium. You kind of have a knowledge of what goes on there. So what are the challenges? Because when you hear about these places, it weighs on your mind in terms of, what went on there. So it can be kind of daunting.
Yes.
It can, just give a bad vibe because I know what happened here. So what are the guardrails that you put up?
So
saying, I know there's some bad stuff that happens here, but I don't want it to affect what I am going to give or the information I'm going to disseminate. You block it out, kind of put it aside. It's easier said than done sometimes.
It is. And again, that's where I have to thank Chris Allgood, because he's the one that was like, the very first thing when I told him, I was like, these abilities are kind of starting to like overwhelm me. I don't know what to do. And told me that grounding yourself is the most important thing. You have to stay connected, deeply rooted to this realm to walk into the spiritual realm. And you have to, for me, I always wear my protective necklaces. I always carry crystals with me. I want to be able to receive the information, but I don't want it to, I don't want to be, I guess, I don't want to get an attachment, I guess, is really what I'm protecting myself against. I don't have a problem feeling the emotions that the people that lived there went through. But, and I know, and some of them have been really horrific and horrendous. Things that I carried with me for a very long time, just knowing that. But we do that as human beings anyway, whether you have abilities or not. If you're a sympathetic and empathetic person, to hear the story of what somebody went through, whether it be good or bad or what have you, we do that all the time anyway. This is just a little bit more, I guess, I don't want to say colorful, but it's just a little bit more concentrated, I guess is the word I want to use, is a little bit more concentrated. Because you not only get their emotion, but you get all of their emotion. So for example, the slaves that were in Sweet Springs Sanitarium, I watched that recent episode of Project Fear's new show when they went back, and Tanner was walking down the basement hallway, and there were like 15 to 20 slaves looking out the door at him. And I was looking and watching this, and I could feel the curiosity, the anger, the pain, the embarrassment, the shame, all of this emotion from this group of people that he could not see. It's can be overwhelming, but through help, I've been able to kind of accept it and not really control it, but at least not let it affect me so that I can't do my job. And my job is to communicate with them. It's to talk to them. It's to say, hey, I understand you're feeling some shame. What is that about? Why are you feeling that way? And, try to get them to open up in that regard is essentially what I use it for. Touching objects is still the main way I get information, but being able to see them now in my mind's eye and feel what they feel. It opens up a different kind of dialogue for paranormal investigators, I think.
All right, Aaron, I'm gonna hand you the rope right now if you want to jump in with Carrie.
Are you sure that's a good idea? You're going to leave us unsupervised? That's a terrible idea. We didn't talk for 2 hours yesterday. We never talk. It's almost every day.
I know, right?
But I think what I love, because Carrie and I have only actually met in person twice. We go back, December 2021. She helped me get a really cheap hotel at the
2.5 years.
Infamously terrible Vegas Paracon. She helped me get a really cheap hotel room for like $60, and we just kind of clicked and all this. We're fast friends very, very quickly. But what I think was interesting was when Carrie's abilities started really hammering her hard. And I'm going to tell the story, and she knows exactly what I'm about to say because it makes me laugh every time I tell it. But she was really going through it. You know, a lot of us who come into this stuff full blown later on in life, it's not fun. You know, people think, oh, it must be great. You can talk, all this information's coming in. And a lot of times you're rocking in the corner in a fetal position, crying to make it please make it stop, because you're just getting hit from all sides. So, Carrie will touch anything for one to test
anything.
herself.
Yeah.
She will touch anything. And so for the first couple of weeks, everything she touched had some sort of impression, because she's like, ooh, let's try this. Ooh, let's try this. And so she called me one morning and she's like, I am so excited. I picked up a lighter today and it was just a lighter. And that, to me, I think what was interesting is that gave me sort of some idea of the kind of information and how much of that information she's getting all the time. Because I never really thought about it that way. Psychometry to me is something you're always doing with intention when you're but not in this case.
Yeah.
Didn't you get a package delivered to you and you got like the whole backstory on the delivery driver and the whole? She has really had to go through the ringer to kind of harness this in. And I've had to call her on occasions for help for things because I don't have the abilities she has. Much better at supporting her energetically when she's doing those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I'm constantly in awe of what she picks up and learns, and it just blows my mind every time. But I think where she and I connect really well is because of my lack of knowledge, just like with, just about everybody else I've met in the field. She's another person I can learn a lot from. And then we've been working on ways to combine what she does, what I do together. And at some point we'll hopefully get to investigate because I'm terrified of investigating. And Carrie's one who can push me out of my comfort zone. So she's constantly trying to get me to be a little bit braver in that regard. And hopefully we'll get there. But we figure, with her abilities and then my energetic impressions could be a pretty good solid team. But for, you've got the podcast, you do all the history because you talked about how much you love the history. So where did that sort of come from for you originally to fall in love with the history first before the other side of it?
Honestly, I just every Halloween, like the most terrifying places on earth and all of those stories, I love to watch those. I love the stories behind them. And that's why when my friend Archie and I started History of a Haunting in 2019, that's where I wanted to take it is, how did it get haunted? Yeah, great. Right. The hauntings, those are exciting and cool and fun. But the history, there's had to have been something that happened that caused the location to be haunted. And I think if you can tell a really good story, you do a really good research, the history really, pardon the pun, but the history really comes alive when you tell the story. And so then the resulting hauntings are just kind of like the cherry on top of the cake.
Yeah.
Because these locations and the people that lived there are just utterly fascinating and deserve to have their stories told. Not everybody is has a life like Sarah Winchester, right? Millions and millions of dollars and all the time in the world to just build a crazy house because the ghost told her to, whatever. But the people that lived at Trans Allegheny, the people that built it, the people that lived at Dixmont Asylum in Pittsburgh. These people, they're not just ghosts. They're
Right.
lives that had stories and everybody's life and stories have meaning. So that's really how the history started, and it worked really well because Archie didn't want to talk about the ghosts. It was creepy. It was, he didn't want to do it, and so he was like, "I love the history. That sounds great." When Archie left the show and Laura stepped into his shoes, she was the same way, and she goes on such deep dives and does such a really phenomenal job at not just telling the history that everybody knows, but she finds stuff about places that I didn't even. So that's one of the things we get from a lot of our listeners, is that they learn something about their most favorite, some of the most popular locations that they never knew before. And Laura is the sole reason for that. She loves the history, and she loves to find out those little nuggets that really make it amazing and wonderful and explain the hauntings a little bit better.
Yeah. So. Well, you and Laura also have such an interesting relationship because, she's a full-blown skeptic. Yeah. Right? I mean, from my interactions with her and talking with her. So I would imagine that makes investigating together. I mean, doing the podcast together, you guys have to find ways of, who's doing what. But I would imagine it's always an interesting investigation for the two of you together because you're from such not opposite ends of the spectrum, because she's not like cynical. She just tends to err on the side of skeptic. So when you guys are investigating, how does that work out between the two of you? Like you pick up something and she's like, nope. Do you guys ever kind of?
Honestly, I am generally smug as hell. Because I am a wholehearted believer. Everybody knows it. I am. I can't really be a medium and not be a believer. Otherwise, I probably belong at Trans Allegheny. But when we investigate, especially when we first investigated, the very first place that I took Laura to investigate was Old Hospital on College Hill. And we went with Chris and Audra. And that's why we heard an oxygen machine and the beeping of that and the sound of the oxygen machine in this room. And that hospital hasn't been, and it has power on like the first floor, I think the elevator, but mainly no, there's no machines plugged in, nothing like that. And she heard it. We were doing a Facebook Live for the podcast listeners. And she was like, "Do you hear that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Where is that?" And I just sat on the floor. Like, I was like, I know what it was. And I let her run all over, ask Chris and Audra, "Was that you? Did you hear that? Were you doing something?" Trying her hardest to find the source of it. And she just couldn't. And I was like, yeah. So that's kind of how our investigations go. She is... we haven't investigated since Trans Allegheny 2 years ago, I don't think. Was it, Laura? I don't remember.
2 years already.
I think so. Yeah, that's been a couple years ago. But the next one we're doing a private overnight of Ohio State Reformatory in August. The podcast puts on events. And the last one we did was the 1910 jail in Globe, Arizona. And this year we are doing the Ohio State Reformatory. And I got the idea. I was like, when we were there last year for Parapsychon, and I was like, "Laura, guess what? We're going to do this place." So that's kind of how we handle it. She just tries to debunk everything that she possibly can. And I'm really just there to talk to them and see if they'll talk to me and talk to me a little bit more about what I'm picking up on emotionally from them, or a flash of something I might get from touching a door, or, touching a doll or a wheelchair, or, whatever. There's at the Trivet Clinic, there's a little girl named Majesty. Trivet Clinic is in Hamptonville, North Carolina. There's a little girl there named Majesty, and she loves to play with bouncy balls. So you can pick up, like, I can touch one of these balls and feel this joy from this child.
Right.
who loves to play with bouncy balls, and it just like it things like that is really really amazing. It's a lot. It's a lot. I gotta tell you.
You got the mojo whammy.
I do, yeah, mojo whammy. Jeff Hilton actually asked a question for remote viewers. Have you ever been taken somewhere other than your target location without your permission? No, I never have. I never have. I never have. And then somebody else, Tom, asked, what's the most surprising thing you've connected to during an investigation? Well, it wasn't really an investigation. But everywhere I go that's haunted, I will investigate. So Laura and I went to London and Paris a year and a half ago. And when we went to Paris, we went to the Paris catacombs. And it's, if you've never been there, it is, if you've never heard of it, it is where they used to bury their dead from either the plague or Spanish flu or what have you. They were running out of cemeteries, and so they used to bury their dead. It's all bones. You can look it up. My mom hates it. It's creepy as hell. But it's about a mile long, and it's about a third of a mile down into the ground, I think is what they said. 300 something feet or something like that. And then it's like a mile long stretch. And there's only one way in and one way out. Like there's no turning around and like exiting. So you've got to commit.
You're committed.
You're committed. No. And if you're somebody like me, you probably should be committed, because what I decided to do, they don't let you touch the bones. However, there's no cameras in it. So I touched a skull.
Oh boy.
And Laura and the kids, because she had her niece and her son, they were walking ahead of me, and I was nobody was behind me. I'm just like, touch this skull. Immediately got a flash that it was a teenage girl dying of the plague.
Jesus.
She had blood coming out of her eyes. She smelled like death. And I felt and smelled her last breath.
Jesus.
It was the most disgusting thing I've ever been a part of. Yeah. As much as I was a part of it. So Tom, that was probably the most surprising thing. And I jumped back and was like, and Laura came from around the corner because it went around a bend, and she was like, "You touched it, didn't you?" And I was like, yeah. But Erin, you know, I will. And you said it, I will touch anything. I will go anywhere. We were on a tour of OSR, and Gary was wonderful tour guide. I love him. I hope he's there for our private. He was like, I was giving a tour, and this gray blob came in, and he was like, this old man crouched down, and he walked over here, and he went into this room, and everybody was like, oh God. And Erin was like, I'm just going to stay here. And he's like, you guys can feel free to walk around. And you bet. And I'm like, all right, great. And he went into this room, you say? And in the room I went and touched the wall and watched the gray blob thing go into this vent. Mm-hmm. And I was looking down in the vent, and I was like, ooh, what is, I've been that way my entire life. It is exhausted my mother to no end. It exhausted my grandmother. It exhausts Jennifer. Like, Jennifer and I have been friends since we were 8 years old. So none of this is anything new to her. We're my mom. Now it's nothing new to you.
No, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's nothing new to you. So, I will dive in head first. I will not. My spirit guides probably drink, because
pretty fair.
I will go into anything. I guess I'm not arrogant, maybe, or I like to call it confident. Chris Allgood taught me well on how to ground myself and how to really protect myself. Yeah. And so I feel very confident in that regard. But there are times where I go places I shouldn't, and I go by myself. I'm like, I'm just gonna go check out this skull of a plague victim,
right,
and touch it. I'm
Chris.
Yeah, Chris, definitely. See, he knows.
But I find that interesting because I am the exact, as you know, opposite. You can't currently pay me enough to go investigate OSR or any of those places for that matter, because I don't have the same handle on one, experience, and two, ability wise that you have. But like, while you're that way where you'll go after anything, you also know where your boundaries are.
Well,
yeah, most of the time.
Largely because one of my main spirit guides is the Archangel Sandalphon, and he has to work a lot of overtime, pulling me back from. I'm kind of like a toddler, where I'm like, "Ooh, something
like
shiny."
The Disney leash.
Yes, I really do. Because I will put myself in situations, in locations that I know are awful and terrible, and have really bad history. And I'll just be like, "Hey, what's going on in here?" And then like be touching all kinds of stuff because I'm nosy. That's just my nature. That's just my nature. And I do that with Jennifer DeSimon. That's the best friend that's grown up with me. That's why she's like, I'm so tired already. I can't even deal. But I will. I just charged in her first.
Having come into those abilities now, like the intensity of where they are now, and having a couple, like, I know you really had a hard time with St. Albans, but that was before all this really kind of like blew out for you. Do you find now when you've got, I mean, I know you haven't had quite as many because of working and moving and, like all that stuff, but do you feel now with the abilities that you have, is it, I mean, obviously it's a benefit to be able to tap in like that from an informational standpoint, but how much harder is it for you now when you leave a place like a Trans Allegheny, tapping in the way that you tap in? Is it an extended recovery period of time for you, if that makes sense, energetically? Or have you figured out through the use of your own, methods, or whether it's crystals or grounding or whatever it looks like for you, that you're able to recover from those really quickly? Because I think that's important for people to know. When you're sensitive like that and you go into a place, you do have to ground and protect before you go in. Yeah. But then you also have to know how to take care of things and cleanse energetically after the fact, because you really can wear yourself out.
Yeah, you can. Primarily, I've gotten my, as far as like energetically, I've gotten that under control. Honestly, though, it is, it's more emotional rest now that I need. It's more emotional rest. Mm-hmm. I see that Chris is talking about Montgomery House, and Montgomery House is, it's a location that him and Audra came across here in North Carolina. It's about, maybe an hour, 45 minutes from Charlotte. And it was this mansion house that for a time functioned as the county's courthouse because the courthouse burned down. A lot went on there. Of course, built around the 1830s, slavery. There was, or there is, a little boy that we think his name is Joseph. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. We were there. It was like, I don't know, maybe the first or second time that Chris and Audra and I had investigated the house. And I was like, God, I'm really hot. And Audra and I were like following spirits around with the EMF detector. And the energy was real low to the ground, like a small child. And I was following it. He led me outside. This little Joseph, who was the son of one of the main slaves that worked there and took care of the family. And the sweetest little boy, but would not really, he was really shy. But it was one of those moments where it was like, he's so sweet. And the life he had, that one took me a while to kind of shake off that emotion, just because it was like, it was just really hard. Children will always, living children, dead children, it doesn't matter, will always get to me. It will always get to me. So it's really just the emotions that I pick up in a location. I am fortunate that the worst I've ever seen is that woman dying of the plague. Because when I see it, I smell it, I can feel it, I can, like the clothes they were wearing or whatever. And she was as cold as a corpse. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And so to try to, I didn't have much time to get used to it because the next ability would pop in. And so I'd call you and I'd be like, holy crap. And, oh,
Hi, Ron.
hi, guys. We're actually going to be at Vendors at Gettysburg this year. We're going to talk about This Little Light here probably in just a minute, but we're going to be vendors.
On the next half.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. So yeah, that's kind of how I use my abilities. I've gotten a lot better with trying to deal with it, but really it's the emotional fallout that takes me a minute.
Sorry, Bernie.
Bean understands. He gets it. She had to mute. So yeah. Oh, Ron, thank you.
I love it. That's great. The timing, epic every time.
I know. He's so sweet. He's got questions for me too.
Yeah, as we bring Ken back on the screen also, we still have another hour. We've got a lot of different topics. I want to get into Trans Allegheny with you, as I've been there before, and one of my favorite places, and the aspect of remote viewing. We're going to go through that also. But Ken, was there something that we needed to announce prior or after our break, sir?
I think we will do it after, my friend.
Okay. But I want to honestly say that, again, it's one of those opportunities for Ken and I, who are kind of like the typical grounded equipment investigators, to dive into another aspect of this field where, again, what that does is compound to the evidence that we collect with our equipment. It's an important 1-2 punch to the evidence review, and having you experience these things and be able to get that validation, and vice versa. What we capture in EVPs, what we capture digitally or audibly, you're able to sit there and verify for us. It helps so much more too. We are at the top of the hour. We got to take our 3-minute break, guys. But when we're back on the other side, we'll continue on with Carrie Hopper and Aaron Bush. You're watching Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. See you in 3 minutes.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We are on our Sunday Night Live second hour. She's popped back in now. Erin Bush, I had a great joke. If she came back on screen, she wasn't there. She had her invisibility cloak on, but she's joined us once again.
Had to get coffee.
Yeah, Ken, I'm sorry. This is what I was talking about. I'll put it up quickly, and then you let me know if this is something we should have up there.
Sure. We're going to get to that a little bit. I wanted to, at the top of the hour, I wanted to get into a little bit of the podcast that you're doing with Laura and History of a Haunting. As we said at the top, it's been around for about 4.5 years now. And it's a lighthearted, to some degree, look at the paranormal. And it's a nice dynamic. You know, you come from one aspect, Laura coming from another as a skeptic. But for those of you who might not be aware and haven't seen it yet, a little clip. And we'll talk about it on the backside. Okay, so that's History of a Haunting. You can find it on YouTube at History of a Haunting 9503. So, Carrie, when you put this together, I assume that did it sort of evolve into one of those, you know, skeptic and believer type things, or was that pretty much how it started right out of the gate?
It's pretty much how it started right out of the gate. Podcast been around for several years, but it wasn't until like 2019 that I started listening to them. And I, you know, as with everything, I was like, hey, you know what? I can have a podcast. So I happened to call up my friend and my friend Archie, and I was like, hey, you know what we should do? We should have a paranormal podcast. You know, love ghost stories. And he was like, how drunk are you right now? And I was like, well, a little, but that doesn't mean it's not a, you know, good idea. And so he came over the next day and we kind of talked about it, and History of a Haunting was born. So then Archie left the show in 2021. And we had brought Laura on to be the hard-nosed skeptic. So it was the three of us for about 9 months. And then Archie left the show in summer of 2021, and Laura filled in, took over for him. And it just, the dynamic worked. It was a very seamless progression because Archie had his own fans. Archie had his own listener base that loved the history and loved what he did and loved how he told it and everything like that. And so it was, but it was a real seamless transition. Laura just took the ball and, you know, she just went off with it. And now she's got her own fan base and she does everything really well. And it's just a dynamic that really works because we need skeptics in this industry, right? We need skeptics because it kind of, I think for a lot of folks, it can keep paranormal investigators honest. You know, there's a lot of people that I've met or that I've heard or that I've shows that I've watched or whatever, where, you know, they think that everything is like a bad entity or an evil entity or a demonic entity or whatever. And we've got the skeptics like Laura that are like, why do you think that? What is your evidence? Tell me why. Because I think that and if, you know, I think that they just kind of keep us honest. They kind of keep us in check. Me, I would love to say that every single place I walk into is haunted and there's ghosts everywhere. And, but that's just not the case. I wholly believe. And she's like, I want to believe, but you're going to have to prove that to me. Like she needs to have her own experiences, which she's starting to. But yeah, so that's why I wanted a skeptic's perspective on the show.
Sure.
Because it like you said, the dynamic really works. It's really good.
Let me ask you something about residential cases. before, because I know we have some questions in queue lined up for you. We get to those. You've done residential cases, and of course, we respect people's anonymity and privacy above all. It's extremely important. Everybody, particularly private ownership, everybody comes at it from a different point of view. Some people want assurances that they're not imagining things or they're not crazy.
Right.
Some people just want information because they may have reconciled the idea that they share their space and they're okay with it. They've come to grips with it. There's not a fear element there, but they just want information. And then you get some people who want to call you in and make it all be gone.
Yeah.
Cross the spirits over or banish them and all the rest of this. So I'm curious to know, you've probably run into all three of those scenarios. We all have.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on the whole idea that someone wants you to cross a spirit over or banish a spirit, or, people start talking about the E word, they want exorcisms, It's not really my thing. If they want it, maybe I can recommend somebody else. We just document. But I'm curious to know in those scenarios where you come down on that, because immediately people know you have some form of a gift, so you're the one they turn to. It's like, please shoo them away, Carrie. It's like, how do you feel about that?
I'm kind of like you in that sense. My best friend, and again, I talk about Jennifer a lot. Anybody that has listened to my show, see me on other shows, they know who Jennifer is. Her house is haunted. They've lived in it for over 20 years. We know who it is. It's the little girl ghost. It's a thing. Some people are okay, like her and her family. This little girl ghost has never hurt anybody. She's never done anything wrong. They live harmoniously together. There have been other cases where this one house wanted the entities gone. It was making their son angry and do things that were completely out of character for him. And they just wanted it gone. Come to find out there was a portal in the house. And so, they were adamant from the minute one, find out what it is and get rid of it. Like, there was no middle ground. And so fortunately, the lead on our team was like, okay, we can figure out what it is. And so then, he closed the portal and he was able to get the spirit out. Didn't cross the guy over. It was this angry man that, I can't remember this backstory on the guy, but he was able to banish him from the house. And then we put warding down around the house. Mm-hmm. So if it were just me, I do get called in on a lot of private residence cases where the family wants to cross it over because they're scared. Mm. So it's a matter of, one, will they go? Two, who can do it? Because I've never crossed a spirit over. I probably could learn how to. It's just not something that, I've ever, like you said, it's not something I've ever really been interested in. Yeah, Chris, mm-hmm. We actually heard him leave the house, this guy. But if the family is okay with the spirit staying, and it's a matter of, hey, this is what they were born on this land, or whatever the case may be, I'm okay with it. I really think I fall a little bit more in line with you, Ken, where it's like, that's not my forte. Bill. But if you're insistent upon it, I can certainly find somebody to help you out with that. Yeah. But it isn't something that I would ever embark on myself.
Well, the thing is, and I say this not rhetorically, but seriously, who do you call? Not trying to be funny, who you're going to call. And right. But see, the first thing that comes to mind is, you have to have somebody come in and do a lay blessing. People want priests. They want holy water and Bibles thrown around. Call a demonologist. And there are people who claim they specialize in this type of thing. Now, okay, I don't know about that
Neither.
because, I haven't really been in a lot of those positions before. There are a couple of people I will call, but I'm not sure how they're going to handle that
Right.
because some people have a preconceived idea. First of all, if somebody says that there's something malevolent or negative there, that's all well and good. You hear out their story.
Right.
Give me the examples, cite the examples, but I still want to do my own assessment.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure of the mental state, and I'm not saying anybody's got a psychosis or anything.
True.
I'm just saying,
but it's important to know.
Anxiety level goes to 11.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and you need to bring them back down.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I mean, and like I say, not rhetorically, who do you call? Who would you call? I'm not looking for a name, obviously.
Right. Sure.
Who do you call? I mean, because there's other, variables, religion and belief systems. And
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it can get really convoluted, Carrie,
It can. And then that's my other question, because I haven't been involved in too many of those kinds of cases where the group that I was with couldn't handle it. But it's an excellent question, because then and I haven't studied it too much. I've only been a paranormal investigator for about 5 years, but that's a question that I have. Okay, you bring up religion, which is a really good point. What if there isn't anybody within your religion that can do this for you? Does the fact that there's maybe somebody from a different religion or just sort of a non-denominational, will that work? Does that not work? How does that, how would that be? What kind of situation would that be? So that's certainly not anything that I've ever come across yet. I'm sure I will in time, but that's something that I do wonder, would a different type of religion mess it up, make it worse, open up something you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, let's say that it's not a malevolence there,
right?
But maybe they're concerned about the spirit and there's a better place for them. Okay, so let's go from there. Maybe they're grounded here, confused. There are a million theories out there, but let's just say you want to put them in the better place. I mean, I've been in situations like that where I don't know. You stand in the middle of the room and say exactly, there's a better place. Go to the light that I can't see.
Yeah.
Pretty please, will you leave? And not saying that as a wise guy or anything, but I'm kind of at a loss. And you just say, okay, you need to go to wherever. I mean, you haven't already. Who the heck am I? To tell you
to be the one to convince you.
Yeah, run along now just because I asked you nicely. So it's always been a bit of a conundrum when we're requested to do that, because I'm sorry, I just have to say I don't know, and I'm always leery. Again, not to repeat myself, but I want to make sure I'm not bringing somebody in who's has an agenda.
Right.
Right. I have to cross the evil. There's nothing evil here.
Right. Yeah.
So it's always been a problem when those kind of requests come.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We've only had the one that I've ever been a part of. It was quite it was such a phenomenal learning experience for me. But I've only ever been a part of the one. And, like Chris said, we actually heard the guy leave the house. Don't know where he went, but he never came back. But he'd been there for a while, just kind of terrorizing his poor family. And I honestly don't know. I'd probably call Aaron and be like, who can we call about this, Aaron? I asked Aaron.
I think
the
thing is
call this guy.
We always try to empower people to do it themselves in their own space. because, you know,
Yeah.
even if you make an affirmation, you need to move on. This is our now.
Mhm.
They're not going to do anything different than I'm going to do. And they
Yeah.
probably have a better shot because they're the owners. They're the presence that is constantly there because I'm going to go home eventually.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So you
They have to live in that
always
space.
want to preach to people to not allow yourself to be a victim.
Right.
And it's not always, hey, there's some scary stuff that happens to people. I understand that. But
Yeah.
you try to do your best to give them those tools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
It's a constant learning curve. I think that I mean, and you've been doing this for such a long time, Ken, and you know, tell me if you disagree, but it's an ever evolving field of study.
Mm-hmm.
There's always new technology, there's always new methodologies, there's always new ideologies. There's the more that the paranormal becomes popular and has been for, you know, almost 20 years now with you know, reality television and what have you, there's a new belief in it or disbelief or skeptic. Everything evolves continuously, so there's always something new to learn. With every place you go, every new investigator that you investigate with or that you meet and kind of trade, you know, war stories with, or, you know, private home you investigate or what have you. There's not anything. One of the things that I love the most that is one of the first things that Chris and Audra and Tony and Sheree taught me is no one's an expert in this field.
Mm-hmm.
No one. If somebody bills themselves as a paranormal expert, get rid of it. I wouldn't go to them. Nobody is an expert in this field. They just simply cannot be. Everything is constantly changing and evolving, including the approach and the perception of the paranormal. So
I know, because as soon as you give a presentation or a lecture somewhere and they label you paranormal expert, will be here Thursday, and then you pretty much have to go like this. I know I'm going to bring George back because we want to get to Tala at some of these locations.
Yeah.
Erin, if you would be so kind, we're going to see if we can get through a couple of questions here. If you want to read them out to Carrie, I'll leave that to you guys.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right, so let's go. The first one's from Jeff. Carrie, can you explain what it looks like when you are traveling with a remote viewing? Well, that's a good question.
As far as traveling, I really just sort of pop there. I meditate, focus on where it is I want to go, and then I just clear my mind, and then all of a sudden I'm there. As far as like what it looks like when I'm there, it's just like I'm there just kind of walking around the property. But it's weird it's kind of weird to be a ghost
Right.
because they don't know I'm there, but I'm just sort of like peeking in and just sort of like, what's going on? It's like I'm physically there, just kind of walking around wherever it is that I'm going. It's a fairly new ability of mine, so I don't really know like how far I can go. I have popped into my friend Jennifer's house to check on her cat one day, practicing that.
Popped into on Bernie once when I was at the farm.
Popped in on Bernie once. Yep, checked on the dog. But I haven't really like tested it too far beyond. I think the Conjuring House is probably as far out as I've gone with it. But I'm really just kind of, I meditate and then I'm just there as far as like the traveling. That's what it's like.
All right.
Sure.
The next one we've got.
Do you have a follow up on the remote? I'm sorry, Erin, didn't mean to.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I dabbled a little bit several years ago. And one of the things that I found fascinating is when you're doing remote viewing, at least in my experience, you are given a focus on certain things. When you go into a place, it's almost like everything else is black and white, but we want you to pay attention to this. So we're going to give this to you in color or in a more of a brightness. Have you had that same experience where you're able to pick things out while you're doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why it's like that. It just is. Chris asked, so would you say that you astral project? I guess that as kind of what I would call it. But it's really just, it starts in my mind. I can feel it in my mind. Like when I'm there, I can feel like my head, I guess if you want to picture some weird sci-fi show, my head, there's like, my spirit is connected to my physical body back here in Raleigh. But I'm wandering around wherever it is I'm wandering around. I'm just kind of connected to myself in that way. I don't know if I haven't really tried astral projection, so maybe it's like that. But yes, it is like that. Like I'm focusing on a specific thing or person. Everything else is black and white, but I can recognize the color of what I'm channeling to be able to view remotely. Like Aaron's dog,
I'll take
who also happens to be black and white.
Yeah, Carrie, I can't find my keys sometimes, so.
All right, the next.
I'm gonna go with another one here.
Yeah.
Erin?
Oh, you got it. From Mr. Tom, who we love. What's the most surprising thing you've connected to during an investigation?
That was the one
boy.
that was the question that I saw. That was the plague victim in the Paris catacombs.
Okay.
That's that one. Yeah.
All right. Then the next one we've got is from Ron, and that's, do you try to convince the skeptic, Miss Laura, things are real, or do they have to figure it out on their own?
I want to convince her. I really do. So when she has an experience that she cannot explain, and I'm like, it was a ghost, hello.
She's going like this in the background. Like,
and she's, yeah, and I'm just like, I would love to try to convince her, but no, I don't want, I want her to figure it out on her own. I want her to figure it out on her own, because the people that want to believe, they just haven't had the experience yet, right?
Right.
I don't want to put that, I don't want to put that in her mind. I want her to make up her own mind. I want her to come to it
that way.
It is more powerful that way. Yeah. And I want her to come into it the way that I came into it. You know, with my own experiences where I could not come up with any other reason other than, you know, it is paranormal. So yeah, I would love to just be like, Laura, look, I know what I'm talking about. Just believe me, okay? And her be like, okay. Well, Carrie says it's true, so it must be. One, I would try to do that, but two, Laura would be like, you need to go F off. Like, Laura's not one that you can.
No, you can't push Laura.
You can't push Laura. No, she'll come into it in her own time. And I think she's starting to. But so I'm excited to investigate Ohio State Reformatory, because that's going to be a good way.
Anybody should be trying to convince anybody of everything. You have your own experience. It's just like, if I have a personal experience and someone walks through this room right now, like video or pictures, or it didn't happen, you know, it's my experience. And I think people need to hold on to that.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. It's certainly something that you can call back.
Yep. Got another question here, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring in Lords. Lords, we miss you. We miss all you guys. We gotta get together and have one of these with you folks. Go right ahead, Aaron.
All right. When you're remote viewing, do you still feel your physical body when you're where you're channeling? Like, if I think she was trying to say, like, if you were still in your body, in two places at the same time. Got it. Okay.
Yes, I do. Yeah, question. I do.
Because like when you have a lucid dream and like, you know, you're dreaming.
Yes, kind of. I was, what was it I was doing? I think I was checking on Bean, I think. And I was just looking at him. I wasn't touching him. I wasn't anywhere like near him to feel this, but I felt my dog lick me. And I was like, Chewy, stop it. Like, and moving my hand, like, but I could feel him lick me as I'm looking at it. Up in the farmhouse.
Yeah. What's a possibility in these experiences with remote viewing that you may not be necessarily out of body experiencing this, but connecting to spirit in that location. And they are the conduit for those visuals that you're getting rather than just you projecting out there. I mean, we use that term
Right.
because it's something that we can relate to. But if you're connecting in a sense, I don't want to necessarily say a reverse attachment, but kind of like that. I mean, that possibility can still be there, correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
It's got to put a different meaning on it because
It
I
it does.
well, if you're
It
doing
does.
if you're doing these remote views, have you had an experience? I know I have, where there's emotion attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
if that's the case, you may be again sensing whoever you're connecting to and what their attachment is to that location.
Yes, that's happened. So I had a friend of mine they live with spirits, and the spirits were upset about something. And I was like, do you want me to just kind of pop in and just kind of take a look and see what's going on around the property? And they were like, yes. So I did. And I was walking around the house, and I could feel this one spirit that everybody knows kind of lives outside, just kind of stays outside, never goes in the house. It didn't want me there, and it kept trying to block me and stop me from going like all the way around the house. And we almost kind of got into a battle of wills where I just was like, I kept trying to walk forward, and it was pushing me back. And so it was just sort of a kind of like a reverse attachment, but I was actually able to get past this spirit because I wanted to put like a ward of light around the house, and it didn't want me to. So I was just sort of like, okay, well, you're just going to have to come with me then, and just kind of pushing him backward as I went around the house. So it hasn't happened yet, but again, I am so committed to how I start all of this and how I end up. Like, it's kind of like when you're, opening a book, you get ready, you settle in, you've got your cup of tea or whatever, and you're getting ready to dive into that story. You've got your blanket on, you're ready, you are in for it. But then you're there, you're in the story, and you're ready to, you're done with the book, you're done with the chapter, whatever. Then you close the book, you wrap everything up, and you kind of clean up your space and put the blanket. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe it sounds like a weird like analogy, but that's sort of how I approach every single investigation, every single bit of psychometry that I do, remote viewing, and my abilities are constantly evolving. So who knows what this remote viewing is gonna do in another year? It's weird. It's weird.
This may fall under the category of selfish aspirations. And Erin, you've practiced doing the same thing. Have you done any type of remote viewing yourself?
I have accidentally done it 3 times, but I was unaware. It was not something I was trying to do. I was in the midst of energy work. And for me, that's when these things will kind of happen, where I was remote viewing the Conjuring
Someone in
house.
the shower. Oh.
Yeah. Right.
No one in there. Somebody in the
thank
shower.
God that hasn't happened yet. But that's happened before, where I was, and I was explaining it to Roger, because where the barn is that we are all familiar with was not there. And so I couldn't make sense of that. And so until I talked to the parents about it and we, anyway, but it wasn't something I was trying to do. But I think, to your point, George, talking about like the connection with the spirits, I think because it's all energy too, now you're getting into like quantum stuff, right? It's almost like connect the dots, right? Which I think, especially if it's a place you're familiar with or people you're familiar with, that connection gets ramped up because you have a personal connection, whether it's on the property or to the location or to a specific person on the property. So any abilities you may already have, like remote viewing, probably get amplified because those dots are closer together. Does that make sense?
Totally.
But it's
Just an
and
opinion.
one of the weirdest things, and and all the different times you've had conversations with Andrea, one of the things she may have brought up was the things that I would have long conversations with her on the phone about experiences. I pick up the phone and say, it was Cindy sitting behind the barn on a engine block smoking her mom's cigarettes. And before she would get caught, she would put the cigarettes down. And this, so we're not only remote viewing now, we're looking at events from the past.
Memories.
So it's just
Wild.
really strange how that all works together. But from the selfish aspiration part of it, as you said, during Halloween timeframe, most haunted locations, have you attempted to remote to locations you have seen on TV to get that firsthand experience? Have you been successful? And to what locations has that been a success?
Ooh. That's a Carrie question. I've never done that.
I haven't either. I haven't done that yet. And I always say yet because, like I said, my abilities are always growing. But I haven't done that yet either.
Well, here's the thing too. I think, and Carrie, I think with the remote viewing, and for me, from the the clairsentient or claircognizance type stuff, where you're just getting information. You also have to put boundaries out there because there's a lot of things you don't want to know, and there's also a boundary line of respect, and like. I know for me that way, I have a general sense of people. I can usually pick one word and what's going on with your life, but I don't always want to get that. And I would imagine, number one, because you feel like, because Carrie, you and I used to talk about this a lot. You feel like you're prying in someone's life, but it's not by choice, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
like
very voyeuristic. Yeah.
Right. And so I think for those of us who have some sort of ability, no matter what it is, there are still safeguards that you have to put in place to respect the things around you. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, if that makes sense.
Right.
To
yeah.
me.
There's some things that like I have no business knowing that my pharmacist is going through a divorce simply because I opened up my pill bottle. Like I don't, there are just things I have no business knowing. But it happens. It used to happen a lot more until I learned how to control it.
Right.
Your thoughts on this ability? We talk about, because of where we are as far as being in the field, that we're that much closer to the veil. But what is your thought process on everybody having some of this skill? It's just not been honed or practiced yet.
I do tend to agree with that. I think that we all have that sixth sense, where
they don't trust in it. They don't trust in it. They're getting visuals, but they're just thinking, what am I thinking about? That kind of thing.
Right. Yes,
That's
exactly. Me. Right. Yeah.
Exhibit A.
This girl, I'll tell you what, you're going on an investigation with me. I'm going to say it right here. Everybody mark the date and time. Okay. I think everybody does have the ability, whether they believe in this or not. Okay. That's going to obviously, they're going to block that naturally.
Right.
I think we all have that innate sense when something is just not right. When, you hear about it all the time too, where people were like, oh, you know what? I stopped, especially when 9/11 happened. You heard so many of those stories where people were like, oh, you know what? I just happened to stop and get a coffee. I never do that, but I just happened to stop and get a coffee. And they weren't in the Twin Towers when the plane struck. So I think every living soul, because we're all connected to spirit, I think we all have that ability, whether we either want it, believe in it, know about it, anything like that. Oh, obviously that's different for every single person. But yeah, I do think everyone is capable of it.
Is it innate in all of us from birth, from childhood, and unfortunately, and we've talked about this many, many times on the show, that we are taught to ignore that. We are taught to stop, fantasizing or using our imagination, and so that becomes a mental block from the abilities, the possibilities that we have. And as we get into this field, we reconnect with that ability that we lost at such a young age.
Yes, I do believe that. I do believe in that. Yes. I very much, and not every paranormal investigator, medium, whatever, believes like I do, but I am very much a believer in reincarnation, past lives. And I believe that we are all here for a reason. We have chosen the lessons we want to learn while we're down here. And when we're born, we forget all of that, right? We forget that we planned out everything that we are about to live in this life, however long we're going to be here. But we are still so close to the veil when we're young and little that we can see ghosts, that we can see, we can feel these things and we can just know these things. And sometimes kids even remember their past lives.
Yeah.
But you're right. As we get older, that's your imaginary friend. Okay, no, that's not real. Okay, no,
Right.
you just heard us talking about this, that, or the other thing, or whatever the situation is. And we just kind of grow up being like, oh, you know what? I had an overactive imagination. And there was this kind old man that, I always saw outside my bedroom window that I'd wave at, or, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely do think.
Selfish question with regards to Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. And again, I love everybody there. The staff is incredible. The location is amazing.
Yes.
But I want to know, based upon your experience walking through that place, if you were able to pick up anything on the third floor when you go up the stairs and then you turn left and go down the ramp, the geriatric ward. And I'll explain to you why I'm asking you that question. But was that an area that your facial expression is telling me something?
Yes. So I do know exactly the area that you are talking about. However, that wasn't an area we spent a lot of time in.
Okay.
Simply because we focused a lot of our time on the violent men's ward and Dean Mathaney's room.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Chris Allgood, was there with me both times we did Trans Allegheny. Did you guys have any kind of experience there on the geriatric side? Because I didn't go down into that area much at all. And I'll tell you why, George. Because I didn't want to pick up on anything there. I didn't want, that is probably the one thing that I will avoid. I think somebody asked me that question earlier. Is there anything that I will try to avoid? Yes. Any kind of abuse, sadness, horrible death of the elderly. Yeah. I cannot do it. And so I subconsciously, purposely avoided that area. But yeah, that's why I will never.
When we were there, I was at the high point of my sixth sense experiences. I couldn't get past the bottom of that ramp, and I was constantly hearing in my head, "Come and play with me, come and play with me, come and play with me." And further on in the investigation, we came upon a spirit, and somebody else that I know who went there caught the same thing in an EVP, "Come and play with me," that there was a gentleman there. I'm going to look right at the camera and look at you, or right at the screen, and see if there's an expression there. If you pick this same individual up, he was maintenance. He was just over 6 foot, blonde hair. He actually looked like Jeffrey Dahmer. And his main location was, see, I told you, main location was the bathroom on the right-hand side as you went down the hallway.
Yes.
That guy.
And I think somebody captured that guy in a photograph. I can't remember who it was.
Yes. Tony. And didn't Tony and Cherie get a picture of him?
No, they didn't go to.
Was that Atala? Oh no, that's somewhere else.
That wasn't Atala.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was somewhere else.
That might have been. Yeah, I'm not really sure where that one was.
That guy's
wasn't Atala. Yeah, that guy is bad news. In fact, there was. No, this was the second floor. The second floor, the kids section, juvenile ward. There was a guy who was like a reverend or a priest or whatever that just sort of like hangs out on the children's ward, down in that far bathroom area.
You know about the priest, yes.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and we had done a session in that bathroom, and there was a bunch of us in there, and Chris, being a former cop, there had been rumors that the priest was maybe sort of like, yep. Good Lord, look at that. Ew. Oh my, do you see that face, Chris? Look at that face. You see the face?
Jeez.
Ugh. No, thank you.
Yeah,
Oh
the
my
energy off of that guy, and at the end of an investigation, it was actually one of those tour groups at night, and we were invited up by Rebecca Jordan Gleason to host the investigation. These were all amateurs, and as they
Yeah.
were leaving that night, I could actually visually see this same guy, this Jeffrey Dahmer guy, attached to the back of one of the girls walking out, and caught her just say, "Don't forget to say protection, and you're not allowed to follow me," and all that stuff,
Yep.
so that you didn't have any trouble at home. But
Yeah.
yeah, that guy has some
Mm-mm.
bad juju, to say the
Bad.
least.
Very, very, very bad. Yep. And he's wearing workman's overalls. Yep.
Uh,
Awful.
when you're doing the psychometry, I know you've talked about a lot of the things negatively that you've had. Does anything come across positively? Anything that makes you laugh, or there's a you feeling of euphoria in that contact?
Yes, actually. My grandfather, who I never knew, he died when my mother was 15. Actually, today is the 60th anniversary of my grandfather's death. My mother still has his wallet, and it's everything is in it that was in it the day he died. His driver's license, photos of his children. When this psychometry first started, I picked up the wallet and I was holding it, and I started to cry. And my mom was like, what is wrong? And I was like, I just feel how much he loved his family. My grandfather died, an aneurysm ruptured near his heart. So he was dead before he even hit the ground. So fortunately he didn't suffer or anything like that, but I just felt like the last time he touched it, he just loved his family, loved his life, was very, very happy. And it was just such an overwhelming feeling of joy. The other thing is, the bouncy ball at the Trivet Clinic that Majesty loves to play with. I felt that childlike, like Nancy is awesome. She is that childlike wonder that we long forget about. We long forget about how excited we used to be to get a brand new ball or to get a brand new toy, and how that was really the only thing that mattered. It was important. We have long forgotten about that. So it was a lot of fun to feel that emotion. Also, Chris and Audra and I had done an investigation at the Trivet Clinic about 2 years ago, I guess. And one of the really cool things is we were standing outside, and there's spirits all over that place. If anybody gets a chance to go to the Trivet Clinic or to Montgomery House, do it. Do it. You will not regret it. They are both amazing locations. But Chris and I, we were like, all right, let's see what happens when we hold hands. See what our abilities can do. The minute I touched his hand, it was like full body, like electricity down my entire body. I have never felt anything as powerful when I held Chris Allgood's hand. It was it wasn't scary. It wasn't creepy. It wasn't overwhelming. It was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful that it was just one of those really lovely experiences to have. Psychometry is a lot different for me now because I can focus with intention now. Before it was just really out of control. It was really out of control. So yeah. I do enjoy it though.
It's got to be interesting too when you travel to places like Paris and you decide to dine outside of the cafe somewhere, and you pick up that fork or that cup. So, okay. And whether you're picking up your server or other people who have used that before, and you kind of keep reserved about it. It's like
it is.
I could explode, but I'm not going to do that.
It is, yeah. And it looks like somebody said, do you ever see or sense family members and or pets when you meet people for the first time? Yes, all the time. Strangers, pets, all the time. Because Erin said something when we first met. I can't remember what we were talking about or what was to a group of people, that she said that people that can mediums and things like that, we just glow differently to them. And that's such a perfect way to describe it, because once they know you can see them, you can hear them, they see you no matter where you go in the world. So yeah, I would, especially if I'm out all the time, like I will always see people's family members, pets a lot. Like, yeah, I see pets a lot. We actually have a little ghost dog here in my house. I don't know who he is. I don't know where he came from. I live in a brand new development that was forest. I'm not really sure whose dog this is, but yeah, we have a little ghost dog here. So yeah, I do see that all the time. No, you're not crazy. Or if you are, so am I, and we'll just be crazy together.
Yeah, we're all crazy. In the time that we do have left, we're coming up to the top of the hour. I wanted to talk a little bit about this new venture of yours, and it's called lightofmindskincare.com. This is something that I saw. This is interesting, so I'd like you ladies tell us a little bit about it, and exactly what it's all about, Carrie.
So this little light of mine skincare was born. I have lupus, and one of the lupus affects everybody differently, but one of the symptoms that I have is what they call the butterfly rash. So my chest and my nose and my cheeks are always very red. It doesn't hurt. I don't feel it. It doesn't itch. It's just, they're just always inflamed. So I had bought a lot of prescription creams. I had bought a lot of expensive over-the-counter creams. I couldn't find anything that would kind of calm the inflammation. So I started doing a lot of research about what are some ingredients that help this specific type of rash. And it was shea butter. It was jojoba oil. It was coconut oil. It was all this stuff. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make my own. And within 2 months, it was much, much better. I would say about 60% lighter. So I thought, ooh, well, okay. But as I was going on, I'm like, you know what? I could make body scrubs. I could make hand lotions. And Erin and I had been talking at the Parapsychon at Ohio State Reformatory last year about the podcast were vendors last year at Parapsychon. And Laura and I were like, we need to reinvent our booth. We need to do this. And so Erin was like, you know what? You could do your crystal paintings, because I'm also a crystal fluid artist. She's like, and I could infuse them with Reiki. People love that. That would be so great. And I'm like, oh, that's a really cool idea. So when I decided the skincare business, I called Erin and I was like, can you infuse skincare with Reiki? And she was like, absolutely. And so that's kind of how it was born. And so the whole line, Melissa's was one of my first orders, and I'm super grateful. Oh, yay. We got talking about it, and I was like, what if we build a brand? And the brand is built around Reiki infusion. I wanted to have very specific lines that targeted very specific skin and energetic needs. So we have a lavender line, Living by Beth Zen, and that's for people that just need to decompress. They need to chill after the end of the day. They have that beautiful aromatic scent of lavender. We have a line that, you know, when you're happy and you want to be happy and everything is wonderful and great, it's light and fluffy and airy, and it's scented in lemon pound cake. That's Happy Dance. When you are just, you know, so in love and you love your friends and you just want to feel enveloped in love, we've got Love Machine that's scented in a dupe of Victoria's Secret's Love Spell. It's a glorious floral fragrance. And Erin loads every single product with specific Reiki intention for what the line is meant to do.
Right.
We got a couple of minutes here, and there is an offer that I want to put up on the screen real quick.
Okay. Yep.
Tell everybody us a little bit about this.
Yes. So, Dead Air Washers, we want you to come and check us out. Okay. I promise, order once, you will be a customer for life. So to get you guys to come in, Erin and I are offering 10% off your first order. It just use code DEADAIR10. That's going to be active after the show ends tonight. So come on in. First order. We're also having a Mother's Day sale going on right now. Buy any body scrub and bath bomb in a bundle, and you'll get those for, I think it's 22% off. For you get both of those for $28.50. You got to order by Wednesday in order to get them shipped out in time for Mother's Day. But come on in, check us out. We everything is infused with Reiki and crystal energy. Some of our products come with crystals in them. They're cleared, they're charged, they're ready to go. You can, once you receive them, get them out of their packaging, their bath bomb, whatever. You can sense your intent for them. We've got amethyst and rose quartz and clear quartz and aventurine. It's beautiful.
Aventurine.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's really wonderful.
We need a product line, Ken. Mausoleum moonshine, or
Satori, thank you.
Ken's baseball caps.
And
You
yet
could, yes.
watch the explosion in Rhode Island from all the way down in Florida when it was
especially the
a
moonshine.
couple of minutes real quick because I sat on this one. Desideratum, have you any of you had experience with nature beings or faith folk? We just got a couple of minutes.
Elementals. I've only had experiences with
Elementals.
elementals so far. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Carrie, if you didn't already have a podcast, we'd probably steal you and Laura to come on in.
Right.
And Satori Hawes endorses it as well.
She's so sweet.
So George, if you
Well,
want
and
to
we're wearing her stuff. Can we show
Yes.
hers off too? We're wearing Satori's jewelry. Both of us are wearing her protection.
Yes.
necklace.
Everybody go shop
Or
Handmade
Etsy
by
shop.
Haas. Yeah, Etsy.
Handmade by
Gotta do it.
Haas.
Handmade by Haas. I also got a beautiful purple labradorite from her, which labradorite's my favorite crystal. So I was super excited to get that. So yeah, go check her out and then go check us out. And then you guys will just be set. Energetically, you are on your way.
We got you covered.
We got you covered.
We got you covered.
New product line, Ken, will start next week. Hell of a holy water.
I have some.
We'll get them that.
I
You
have,
see? Oh my God.
Oh,
I have it right here.
There you go. Okay.
10% off if you mention Ken's name. So
That's it.
thank you so much. Carrie Hopper, thank you so
Thank
much.
you
Wish you
so
the best. We'd love to have you back again. Aaron, as
Absolutely.
always, lovely to have you. And,
Thanks for having me.
we
Miss
we'll
Rise
see you
Up.
guys-
Hi, honey.
We'll see. Yeah, well, she's just downstairs right now. So, all right, we'll see you guys next week, tomorrow night for our Patreon members. Town hall meeting, 8 p.m. Do not forget. And for those of you looking to join, do it before tomorrow night, and you can join us as well. On behalf of Ken DeCosta, you've been watching Dead Air Live and the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. We'll see you guys next week. Until then, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Bye.